Give it a few for people to pile in.
Sure.
Hey, Ed, Kim, what's going on? Hey, Fair Shake, what's up? No sound. What the heck? Yeah, hold on. Everything is syncing up, so just give it a minute. Apparently YouTube's running a little slow tonight. Yeah, everything is syncing up, guys. Sorry about that. For some reason, YouTube is running a little slow. Hey, Boomer. Hey, Man in Black. What's up, man? Chi-Town Citizen, Mystery 13. Going through the usual greetings. Are you able to see the chat, too?
What's that?
Are you watching the chat as well?
I'm trying to find it right now. Pulling up your channel.
Hey, adjust your focus. Now I do have a delay programmed into this, so you will see a delay between us and the actual stream.
Mm-hmm.
It helps with buffering.
Right, a lot of people are talking. I want to be able to read it.
Hey, Tay. Well, we don't have that many people in there right now. See, sometimes the notifications go out, sometimes they don't. It's very hit or miss.
Right.
Sometimes I'll have 150 people in here, other times I'll have 10. So, you just never know. So, did you guys all get a notification? Or did you just happen to... Hard to hear blue.
I have a microphone that might help if I can find it. Give me 1 second.
So, how's everybody doing while we're just waiting for him? I mean, my program can hear him fine, but that don't mean nothing.
You where the microphone was, that'd be great.
Yeah, welcome to the world of moving.
Yeah. Oh, wait, no. This might, screw up all of my audio.
Hey, Gabo, welcome. First time viewer, huh? Interesting. Slacker. I did give Blue your email address, by the way. Hey, Modified Mommy. Hey, Wayne.
I'll just talk loudly, I guess.
Yeah, just talk loudly. I
All right.
don't. But it's not just YouTube. It's Zoom. I think they're doing software updates.
Hmm.
So, because I did a couple bug reports and they got back to me and said that they were doing upgrades. So
Good.
it could be Zoom as well. I tried using the Google Hangout system and I had nothing but problems with that. It
Hmm.
was very slow. So Zoom seems to be the fastest system I've found.
Okay.
So, all right, well, we can get started here. Why don't you just kind of start by introducing yourself to everybody? You got like almost 40 people here or something like that to start with.
Sure. All right. So I go by the name Sergeant Blue Bacon. I am a sergeant in the Army. I used to be in the military police corps. I've enforced federal, state, and military law. I have a bit of a history as a criminal investigator. So I have a bit of a background in law enforcement. I have some higher education in criminal justice. I run a channel. Right now, I'm sort of covering the auditing community. That's not going to be permanent. It's definitely a temporary sort of thing. But just start for the channel. At the time, I sort of found the community, and then this is something I think I should talk about. There are a lot of people I saw, I guess, doing the wrong thing when they thought they weren't. Now, I support people filming. I support people protecting or using the protections of the Constitution. However, there are limitations to that that a lot of people don't understand. So I started with filming a military installation, and when you can and cannot do this, that's something I have experience with. And I'm moving on right now to when you can or cannot film inside federal buildings. So during all this research, I did learn a lot about how the First Amendment can be restricted. I've been in a lot of comment sections, a lot of videos for explaining that to people. So if you've seen me, thanks for your support, or thanks for the entertainment. Some of you are pretty brutal in those comment sections. But now I'm here to talk to you guys and give you a little more information that you might want to ask me directly.
Yeah, see, there's a lot of negativity lately, so people are very on guard right now.
Sure.
Um, so of course, when you come around now, hey CC, um, the first thing people see in your channel, and I mentioned this to you in email, is the blue line just smacked right across your screen. And we have dealt very much with that blue mind mentality. That cops first, lawyers first, protect each other mentality, and that's one of the things when people see that, they automatically think, okay, you must be a bootlicker, you must hate us, and you're the way you've explained it to me is you're not for or against auditing, you're just trying to explain the law.
Right, and that's what I'm trying to do. I fully support. When I was a police officer, but I'm not anymore. I did my contract. I'm still with the military, but not as the police. Not because I didn't like it, not because anything went wrong. A lot of people leave the police force because they did the wrong thing. That was not my case. It's just I had a set contract. But one of the things I was advocating for is if you want to film me while I'm doing my job, I expect you to, because I have a standard to uphold. And if I'm not upholding that standard, someone needs to say something. And if it's not me and someone else doing the wrong thing, I want to know. I personally arrested police officers. I pressed charges against them when I was a criminal investigator. It didn't happen often. It happens less often than you might think. Um, but yes, we we pursued charges against officers who were doing the wrong thing, not necessarily on duty, but in their personal. Um, they're obviously not perfect. I'm very aware of this. However, some people will accuse me of being biased, and it's hard not to be in my case because I understand what the police are coming. I understand the training, I understand the logic, I understand what the mentality of what they're going through is. And so I'm pretty willing to forgive them for some minor mistakes. But there are bigger mistakes that, well, there was a video that was put out by Scam Stingers 2, and they are part of the group like Van Balen. We talked about Van Balen and his ilk, I guess you would say, and how they sort of misconstrue what a sovereign citizen is, and they sort of throw some First Amendment auditors. And they had a video of a man who was a passenger in a vehicle, and his vehicle was lawfully stopped, and it was in California. California police demanded the passenger's ID. Now he had no reason to give it. California is not a stop and ID state. There's no law that would have required him to provide it unless it suspected him also committing a crime. But being the passenger of the vehicle isn't a criminal act. If the reason the vehicle was stopped is a traffic offense, the passenger has usually no influence on how the vehicle is driving. So they put him in handcuffs. They detained him in order to get his ID, and that was absolutely wrong. And if you find that video in Scam Stingers 2, you'll see comments from the last week or so of me just saying, nah, the police officer was wrong. This man's not a sovereign citizen. He's just someone trying to defend his rights. So I play both sides. I pick some topics that people don't like the sides I'm playing on. There are a lot of police officers who have expressed their dislike of my opinions. There are a lot of auditors that have expressed this. Regarding the blue line, actually, from the green screen there, that's when I film in front of them, the blue line replaces that. I don't want it to be a surprise on a police officer. I don't want to be giving information and then someone finds out that I was law enforcement. I was involved in that community and think, wow, this guy is telling me what to do. And, I want to be upfront about it. A lot of my sort of persona, I guess, my name, Blue Bacon, it's a joke. People are going to call me that anyway. I might as well do it first. And the blue line is just, that's a little bit of the humor thrown in. But I don't want it to be a surprise to anyone. I don't want to pretend to be someone I'm not. So that's why I throw it in.
Yeah, hey, Black Label. I told you, I believe in good cops. I know there's good
Mm-hmm.
cops out there. I'm not. I don't hate all cops. I don't believe in that. I don't subscribe to that stuff. But there's a difference between good cops, bad cops, and blue line mentality versus good cop mentality.
Mm-hmm.
That whole blue line thing is, I posed this question to Mike the cop, and I really hated his answer to this.
Mm-hmm.
I said, when you approach as a cop, when you approach somebody that's standing on the street in the inner city, maybe African American or Hispanic or whatever, with a red bandana hanging out of their pocket, what is your first thought? That's a gang symbol, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a cop, would you think that? Is it fair to say that?
Well, I view that differently because I enforce law mostly on military installations, not entirely. Um, there aren't many gangs on military installations that openly broadcast. There is gang activity, but you don't see them going around with the symbols. I'm familiar with what the symbols are. I have training in that. I have experience. But I don't look at someone and see, a crown tattoo and think, okay, they're part of this. The teardrop. I've seen people with teardrops, and I think, all right, cool. That man was in prison. He killed a man. But he's not killing a man now. I might have some sort of thoughts on it. I might be a little more cautious because I know that this person has a history, but I'm not going to engage them. I'm not going to treat them as if that is the history, that is what they're doing at that moment, unless there are other people. You pass your past. Some people keep the past there, some people move on. And who am I to decide if you've moved on or not, unless I've actually interacted with them? So I may be more cautious, but I'm not going to try to let that influence how I'm interacting with
Okay, well, maybe, I don't know. That's kind of a
people.
vague answer, but I mean,
Right.
like I
My
said,
heart
okay,
is
picture a group of guys. You're in the
sure.
inner city. You're a cop on the beat. You get a call of a disturbance. You pull up to the scene, and there's five African American guys all wearing red bandanas.
Mm-hmm.
Are I mean, to me, I find it impossible to believe you wouldn't think that's a gang symbol.
Well, it depends on. Well, you have to take into account. You're asking a very simplified version of how it would happen. So if you're called in the scene, let's say it's a disturbance. Hopefully, you have information on who is causing the disturbance. You might be familiar with that area. You know what kind of gang activity is in there. If that is a known place for, let's say, the bars, right? If that's a known hangout, and you see people wearing that sort of symbol, of course you're going to think that maybe they are involved. Um, but that doesn't mean you have to act on it. So if they match the description, I'm going to detain them. I'm going to ask them some questions, and if I don't get anything that would indicate they're committing a crime at that location, I'm going to have to let them go because otherwise it's a violation of both of rights.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm not saying arrest them because they got a
Sure.
symbol. I'm just saying that the mentality is there. You're going to be more cautious. You're going to think, okay, well, if I get in a fight with one of these guys, I'm going to fight all of these guys because
Mm-hmm.
they're going to protect each other. That kind of
Sure.
thought. That's
Mm-hmm.
what we see with the whole blue line.
Mm-hmm.
Is it's secret society, decoder ring thing where the cops and them they're part of that gang or that group,
Sure.
and they protect each other and they listen to each other and they choose each other above all others.
Mm-hmm.
That we've experienced it time and time again
Mm-hmm.
where the cops, like, well, for instance, when Furry got shot,
Mm-hmm.
the first thing they did was put her in handcuffs. You
Yeah,
know,
which
so
strange decision. And we talked about that before the stream. Is there's a lot that happened in that incident that I don't understand. There's a lot that doesn't really make sense. And part of the problem is with this the brotherhood of the police. And all that. You have these organizations. I'm not a member of any of those organizations. I never have. Some people have come to me and said, "Oh, police are Freemasons. They're out to start a new world order." I'm not a Freemason either. I don't care if you believe that or not. But some people don't. I'm not part of a bigger organization as far as the police go. And one of the beautiful things I always have been very excited to tell people about the military police is that you don't stay in a location for very long. You move every 2 3 years. You don't have much time to sort of build up that rapport with you. You stick someone in a location for 20 years and that power gets to their head, they're going to have a lot of fingers in a lot of pots. They're going to be all over the place with all these connections. I think that it might be worth looking into transferring an officer every so often, not to another state and to another county, somewhere where they don't have all the influence. I think that would be a possible solution. It's not a great solution. It's already hard to get police officers. There have been problems hiring police officers all over the country because of the mentality towards them. A lot of police officers are quitting, and not many are taking place. So if you moved officers around, that's only something you do if there's a surplus of officers and there are people willing to take that job and willing to go through that effort. Um, but at the moment, I don't think it's feasible. Um, but I think that is something that should be looked at. Just the idea of maybe we need to sort of swap people out more often and sort of stop them from forming those connections. And one of the other problems is you put a police officer in court, they're going to know the responses that sound best. When I testify in court, I know the correct wording to indicate that this person does the law. If you're speeding, I know how to say in legal terms, yes, they were speeding, they meant all these elements. The problem is if you're being charged for something, you still know all that stuff. And so if you're if charges are being brought against you by a civilian who doesn't know how to articulate properly uh, the laws that you violate, whether or not it actually has been violated, that officer is going to have the upper hand every time. So I think not only do people need to need to look at how the police sort of interact with each other and build those bonds, we also need to educate the public a little bit better on what their rights are and how the legal system works. And that way they can, I think that's one of the better defenses, and that's one of the more peaceful defenses to protect people against their rights being violated.
yeah. Well, see, that's why I was saying if you are you say that and we should view you as at the very least neutral, if not
Mm.
geez, with these
And I am
stupid.
totally biased towards police. I don't want people to think that's not true. I try not to do that. I try to look at everything pretty subjective.
But I mean, it's just my opinion. You could do what you want with your channel, but I mean, I recommend doing some other imagery than the blue line, at least in terms of if you don't want people, because so many people automatically judge what they see. They're going to
Mhm.
see that blue line and they're automatically going to have that impression.
Right.
You know, you're automatically going to be somebody against us. I
Sure.
thought it. Noli thought it. You know, many people have thought it.
Mm-hmm. I
So
have a couple responses to that. Is one, I uploaded a couple more videos. Every time I switch topics, I intend to change my background a little bit. So I switched over from filming military installations to filming inside federal buildings. I haven't done any specifics. I will be doing one on Johnny 50. He got arrested in a VA hospital. We'll be doing video on him. I know there's a lot of sort of weird stuff going on with Johnny and some of the other communities. And this isn't an attack on him. This is just, hey guys, he was wrong. He misinterpreted this law. I want to discuss it. That doesn't mean he's always wrong. It's just in this particular incident, he was incorrect. So in my military video is a very clear blue line. In the more recent ones, on the new topic, it is less distinct. There's a little more fancy stuff going on. And a second point, I thought where I was going with it, but doesn't matter. I forgot what the second point was because I rambled.
yes, I was trying to answer somebody while you were talking too. It happens. I'm addressing something that keeps coming up for no reason in the chat. But yeah, I
Chat,
mean,
though. I'm having a good. You weren't the chat. I was warned about you. I was told that your guys were going to get possibly pretty hostile, but it's a good time in there.
well, it seems that a lot of the people are being a lot more accepting of you than I anticipated. But
Hmm.
again, I've also had several people say, "Oh, watch out! He's quick. He's got a slippery tongue. He's good at twisting the conversation."
Sure. I mean,
So
don't trust me. I say in a lot of my comments, do not trust me. Not because I'm trying to do the wrong thing, but you shouldn't trust someone at face value. I supply a lot of facts. I give you the statutes. I give you the case law. Um, I expect you to look it up and check that. You know, I provide all of that. I'm not trying to hide anything. I'm giving you the same information I have. And if I'm not giving that information, ask me and I'll provide it for you. But I don't want people to blindly follow at all, by any means. And that's, I don't know if you have ever heard of, what is it, Jonah Operator?
who?
Jonah Operator. He's a law enforcement channel.
Okay, I had to make sure I was reading that right. Donut operator, you said?
Yeah, I think that's what he goes.
No, I'm obviously not familiar with that.
He's a former police officer. He was in a SWAT unit. He has some interesting experience. Now he makes YouTube videos. He's got close to 1 million followers. He's, pretty good following. I found him, and I enjoy his videos, but he's pretty biased. He's very biased. Really entertaining content. It's very educational, but you gotta take it with a grain of salt. So I wanted to provide something that was a little less biased and provide a little more information. He'll base a lot of his information on his training, but he won't cite laws. He won't cite case law. Um, well, he will sometimes, not always. But basing something on training that you can't provide, that's technically the training isn't always for public dissemination. For example, mine, a lot of it is still for fish use only or classified as some sort of secret, not top secret, but definitely not something the public has access to. So I can't usually use my training to be like, well, this is how I do it because I can't back that up. I can't share that with the public. I've signed a non-disclosure agreement with the government. So I just thought that was not a great way of really doing it, which is why I made my channel. I wanted to really be able to provide the information.
Well, yeah, see, I see great benefit in, having somebody that, and I've even said this about Merv. I've said, you know what, if he would stop all the ridiculous trolling, he could actually benefit the community with his legal knowledge, you
Mm.
know. And I say the same about you. I told you first thing in email, I told you in comment, I said, look, if you are who you say you are, I have no problem supporting you, trying to bring attention to your channel. And of course, I firmly think it's a great idea to spread knowledge of law. I
Mm-hmm.
know I don't, I'm lucky I know a couple of my local laws. Usually I know the laws that I've been arrested for breaking. But,
Right.
you know, we've encountered this thing that I've kind of coined sidewalk litigation.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what happens with most of us, you'll see, well, most of the active auditors is when they're out on the street auditing, a lot of times cops don't even care that they say, "Look, this is legal because X, Y, Z," or
Right.
"Law 1, 2, and 3 says I can do this." They don't
Right.
care. They don't want to talk law. They don't want to check with their superiors. They automatically assume they are right, throw you in jail, let you deal with it in court.
Right. No,
And that's
I can elaborate on
ridiculous.
that. When you're a police officer, everyone who interacts with the police sort of interacts with them as if they're the only person the police are interacting with. Now, that officer has dealt with 10, 20 other people that day who've been like, I can do this, and been wrong, been very, very clearly wrong. So by the time the officer gets to the auditor, they might just be like, you know what, that's going to be another one of those, which isn't the right answer. And they should sort of do it with a fresh mind, but they're all human. It gets very difficult at the end of a long trying shift when someone wants to test your patience, and you're like, no, I'm not dealing with this, for the 10th, 20th time. And so you have to sort of understand that that's how it gets in some of the places where there's a lot of people dealing with these, oh, well, I know the law and here it is, when, of course they're not right. Now, many auditors do get it right. However, many auditors don't. So you have that, the police are just too sick of just dealing with this, which is one of the reasons why I say auditors sometimes need to sort of back down. If they want police to help, they have to act like someone the police are going to want to help, which they shouldn't. They shouldn't decide whether or not they want to help, but sometimes that decision is subconscious. The officers are just gonna, if they're in a bad mood, they're not gonna be as patient. And if your actions are similar to what put them in that bad mood, of course they're not gonna be terribly reasonable, which definitely isn't great, but human nature. It's something you need to take account. If you stop treating the police like they are people and think of them as if they're just machines that are supposed to enforce the law and do what the government tells you, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to have an issue because they are people. If you fail to account for how they're going to behave, they're going to behave in a way that you didn't predict, and everyone's going to get upset. And that's just one of the biggest issues I see is, okay, they're public servants, but what are public servants? They're people that are paid to do a job. So that's one thing that a lot of people just fail to take account of. And you mentioned local laws. Not enough people understand that you have federal laws up top, and then what isn't in federal law goes to state law. What isn't in state law goes to county law. What isn't in county law goes to city law, and then you have local ordinance, some variation of. It's not always enough just to know your state and federal law. Sometimes you need to know, what are the quiet hours. I just did a video on hate the state, and he was arrested
Yeah.
for one of the biggest things he did wrong was in April. Police responded to some sort of incident, a disturbance near his house. So he started filming, and he got charged with 3 counts of witness tampering or witness intimidation because he was making fun of the witnesses, and he made it difficult for them to actually uh, say their side of the story in a timely manner. And those are, Class C felonies each. I think that's 5 years maximum punishment, $5,000 fine. He's also charged with 2 counts of obstruction, which he did fail to step back from the crime scene. They only wanted him to go back 5 feet and refused. So that's one of the things I wasn't sure about was whether or not he's committing disorderly conduct, they charge him with that once. But if that area has laws that prohibit loud noises after 10 o'clock, that's something he needs to be aware of before he starts yelling at people while the police are investigating a crime. Like, he has the right to film the police investigating a crime. He has the right to say things, but there are limitations to how he can say it. And there are limitations to where he can go while filming. He failed to account for that, and now he's in jail. So it's these little things that will get the big things. Sure, it's important to focus on the big things. But you fail to account for little things, and the police don't like you. That's what they're going to be charging you.
Yeah,
So,
and it's not. Hold on. You guys, do you have to be that freaking childish, really? I
what are
don't
they doing?
want your money if you're just gonna use your freaking super chats to talk shit about people. We aren't here to talk shit about David. We're here to talk to Blue Bacon. So keep your money if that's all you're gonna do is super chat and talk shit. But at any rate, one of the users in the chat room, Ozark Hillbilly, great
Mm,
guy, he asks, "What are your thoughts on officers that are fired from one precinct for breaking a rule or a law
sure.
and hired at another precinct?
I think
They're
it's terrible.
allowed to work."
I think it's terrible. I'm applying to other jobs. I'm applying to security jobs right now. Some really exciting opportunities. I had to go through a polygraph, and that's the thing that worries me. Not because I lied, it's just those polygraphs aren't as accurate as they want you to think. And it's not the machine that will usually get at you, it's the polygrapher who's trained to read body language and all that line. It amazes me that I'm this nervous, having, a very clean history, and as honest as I was in this polygraph, I'm still nervous about getting this job. And there are a lot of police officers that don't get jobs for various reasons, because the polygraph failed, even though they were telling the truth, or maybe they left out some minor detail and their subconscious alerted the machine to it. But the fact that you can be a cop, mess up badly enough to get fired, and then still be a cop somewhere else is a problem. But that stems back to what I was talking about, was there are a lot of departments that are understaffed. And so they have to fill those positions with somebody. Otherwise, who's going to protect the people? And I know chat's going to be like, oh, police don't protect people. And I get it. There are incidences where the police do the wrong thing. Of course. But you're not going to fix that by scaring the good cops away and letting the bad cops just move, right? If you're going to have cops move, because I support moving cops around, but not because they did the wrong thing. I just think that it's a good idea to stop moving people's relationships to allow them to sort of protect themselves by having some powerful friends. So the idea that you can get in trouble, get sent somewhere else, uh, after being convicted. Now this is a conviction, right? Now you can get in trouble and charged with drop, and you get moved because it's too dangerous for you to remain in the area, because you determined, no, you're doing the right thing legally, but the public backlash is going to be too strong to remain. That I understand. That makes sense. But when you are actually criminally charged with something and you have a conviction and just goes, okay, yeah, it's in your record, we're not going to punish you, hey, just move over here. That's wrong.
Yeah, well, see, people just pointed out that my mistake too as well. It's not so much cops that are convicted of anything, but
Mm-hmm.
are allowed to gracefully quit and
Mm-hmm.
then go reapply somewhere else.
No, hate it. No. If you messed up and it was bad enough that you would get fired, there should be a permanent record for police officers, and generally there is, that gets sent to the next department saying, he did it with us, he will do it with you, or she, because it's, more commonly you see female police officers. In the military, I would say the military is great. There are a lot of issues, a lot of police issues that I never had to deal with. So I only unfortunately saw it from the outside, and I couldn't deal with it personally, and sort of try to fix the issue. But if someone messes up, it, there are a lot of options on how to correct. I don't know how police work in regards to that, so I can't talk about um, what their reprimand system is. But if you mess up badly enough that you were going to get fired, and instead you retire, I think I just it seems crazy to me that a department would be willing to hire someone.
Well, what
Unless
makes
it's,
it worse is the ones that get fired. Well, okay, here's one example. I'm sure you've probably heard the name Eric Brandt.
I keep seeing the name. I'm not familiar with who that is.
He's a he's very well known activist out of Colorado. Very
Mm,
active in the Denver area. Um, he's been dealing with cops for a long time. He's been an activist for a very long time. He's formerly in the Navy. Um, he had basically he took sidewalk chalk, mashed it
mm,
up, mixed it with rubbing alcohol so that it would be a little bit harder to wash off,
sure.
and then wrote, F the police and all that on a sidewalk outside of a public building.
Mm,
I don't remember if it was a police department or something else, but either way, they got him with all these weird. I don't remember the exact charges, but he ended up having to do 6 months.
really?
Now the catch 22 there is in a cop that had years ago arrested Eric for some reason had raped a woman in his
Mm,
cruiser. He only had
mm.
to do 6 months.
Yeah, that's where you get the people know too many people, and they get things um, dropped down. Now, also, I had a discussion with someone a week ago as to why people don't get charged as strong as they should. Is the prosecution will sometimes drop the charge down to a lesser offense because the charge they're trying to get, the big one, is very hard to prove. Rape is very hard to prove. However, um, the lesser sexual misconduct charges are much easier. So if you charge a man with rape and you don't have enough evidence and it's acquitted and he, it's proven that, or you can't prove that he did it, you can never charge him with anything again. So sometimes, in order to charge that person and make sure they get punished, you have to drop it to a lower offense. For DUI charges, you see this all the time. They get charged. They go from DUI to negligent two. Uh, is a common one in some states. Now, every state is going to be slightly different, but that's because it's really hard to get someone with DUI if you have a good defense. Um, it's really easy to get someone with negligent driving if you can prove that there was alcohol in your system. So sometimes, to ensure that someone gets charged, because the evidence isn't as solid as the public either wants it to be or thinks it is, you have to drop down to a lesser charge. I don't know if that's what happened with that incident. I just know that that is more common than people realize. That they don't understand that in some cases you have to charge them with less in order to charge them penalty. Now, of course, it could be his friends backed him up and evidence was destroyed and cameras were turned off and that sort of thing. It could be that, but one of the things I want to make sure people aren't doing is only focusing on that is how it is. There are so many other ways that that could have gone down. So I want to encourage people to really research into it, to get those court files, to see what how the prosecution did. Call up the prosecutor. Get the Freedom of Information request because you can speculate all day, and it's really easy to look at it and go, "Yeah, I can see how bad that would be. That police officer would be fired." But in fact, you know, what was the actual situation. I want to chat. Chat. Worry about chat. I don't want you to think that I'm defending you. Break that woman. I I have no point. I want to say that I think he should die in jail, but I don't think it would sadden me. I'm not saying I want a police officer dead, but I have no love for convicted criminals. I know people. I have friends who have been on the receiving end of that sort of thing. I have no love for anyone who doesn't get consent and all that good stuff.
Yeah, well,
But
you're gonna learn a lot about different people in the movement and their
mm,
histories and whatnot, and it gets tiresome. But Eric Brand is a great guy. He can be very passionate at times, and he may act in ways that you may not agree with.
mhm,
But he has stood up for people's rights for a long time. He has
mhm,
gotten, you know, he's gotten things, it may seem minuscule, but like, for example, he found out that homeless people with no shoes were
Yeah.
being kicked off of city buses.
Mm-hmm.
So he protested it, and he didn't wear shoes for like 2 years or something like that. And he did a lot of protesting on it, and he actually got it changed.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're allowed on the bus. I mean, it may seem minor, but he did, and he's fighting the urban camping ban in Denver. You
Mm-hmm.
know, all those things. And if you look at this man has been arrested something like 200 times,
Sure.
and you know they looked for every reason in the book to arrest this guy. Like
Right.
he just got arrested the other day because he's wearing an ankle monitor from another charge, and they tried to say he violated some kind of distance rule or something. I mean, it gets ridiculous, but that is a good example of what the blue line mentality we see. A cop rapes a woman, sexually assaults, whatever the charge was, it was a sexual crime,
Mm-hmm.
and he gets the same amount of time as a guy that vandalizes a public sidewalk with liquefied chalk. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I see you grinning. Is somebody saying something
Oh,
funny?
Patrick Canberra says, "Tell him to do his homework before he comes to these shows. Doesn't know who Eric Grant is." Hey, I didn't. I want to apologize for not knowing everything that we're talking about. We didn't have a set um, topic. It was just let's have a conversation, live stream,
Right.
and we were sort of thrown into this without having anything to prepare on, which I was fine with. I just want you to know that there are a lot of topics I do know about. And I'm trying to address them as much as possible. But if there's something I don't know about, I'm not going to try to pretend that I'm an expert on it. It's fine though. It is something I do want to look into. I've been writing stuff down so I can do after this.
Yeah, no, I agree. I know you don't know all of us yet.
Mm.
You'll learn. Like I said, Eric Brandt is one of our more well-known, very high-profile activists. Great guy. Great. I mean, the guy's got like the brain of like Stephen Hawking.
Mm.
I mean, you wouldn't even realize it by some of his videos, but when you actually talk to the man, he's a genius.
Mm-hmm.
And you got like in the channel, you got Monkey 83. He's Marine who's been an activist for a long time, and he was really targeted by the cops, and they did everything they could to try to put him away. And I bring him up because I wanted to bring up the topic of the public, not necessarily cops, because Steve Pinder and I talked about this on his stream last night. We talked about getting the people on our side.
Mm-hmm.
And now, my question to you is if you're an auditor standing outside, say, a military installation across the street on public property filming, you get accosted by police and you start yelling F the police, whatever, which is legal, you can say it,
Yep. Yep.
and you get a bunch of bystanders that come up to you and say, "What the hell's wrong with you? Why are you doing that?" Blah, 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 blah. We get a lot of auditors that immediately, "Oh, you're bootlickers, this, that."
Right.
What do you think is the proper approach to the civilians that we want to help them open at least see that rights are being violated, and
Yeah.
it needs to
Mm-hmm.
to to stop.
I actually have that is something I've thought about when doing this. If you come into my comment section and you're very reasonable, and you say, "Well, I think this," and you're very polite, I'm more willing to listen. I will definitely sort of take what you say, look into it, and I'm much more agreeable. You come into my comment section and you're just, fuck you, you think this, like what? I'm gonna do everything I can to prove you wrong, right? Because now you come and challenge, you come to my house, you challenge me, and that's not just on the internet, right? Now, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I've been wrong before. Whatever. But in person, people are going to respond the same. So if someone comes up and says, "I don't like your film," the correct response isn't, "You're a bootlegger. You know, I bet you bend over for cops all the time." The correct response is, "I understand that you think that maybe I should be doing this. You have some time for me to discuss why this action is illegal." If you are reasonable towards them, they're probably going to be reasonable towards you. And if they're not, well, then sucks to be them on this. I've footage. One of the topics I'm going to be doing is going to be how to protest without getting arrested, without getting riot police called. And that is going to be around the same time I start looking into instances of police brutality, which I'm going to go both sides of. So if you think I'm pro-police, it's going to get, there's going to be some anti-police stuff in there, I promise. I have a lot of videos saved that cops do the wrong thing. But I went to a Trump rally in Seattle, in this Washington. I live sort of close to there. And if you know anything about Seattle, it's a very Democrat location. So I was hoping to get some footage of counterprotests, which never happened. But there were about 10 people that showed up. It was maybe the most pathetic political rally I've ever seen. And I'm not saying, this side is better than the other side. It's just this happened to be a Trump rally. And I was able to go to it. And I was hoping that there would be a little more action than there was. But it was very calm. It was very professional. And there was a heckler outside of this little rally who was saying some rude things. And one of the people that was involved in the rally went up to her and said, "Hey, instead of shouting insults at each other, I think that maybe we should discuss our issues like reasonable adults." And she calmed right down. And by the end of it, 5 minutes later, they're shaking hands, right? If you come at someone with an aggressive attitude, they're going to be aggressive back. But if you want to de-escalate the situation, actually educate someone, you have to treat them like they're a person. Otherwise, you're going to accomplish nothing.
Hey, Slacker, did you want to call in still, or did you just want to talk to him in email? Either way is fine. He just had a really good question, regarding military installations that he wanted to ask you, and I thought it would be great to ask it on air.
Okay. I mean, I'll answer it if I can. There's some things I can't talk about, but
yeah, see, look at what Slacker just said, though. Look at what he just said in there.
In the looking for it.
But he said, I'm a vulgar person, so does that not make me professional and an adult?"
Well, people aren't going to treat you like you're professional or an adult. You can be professional and you can be an adult. But if you want to educate people, you have to take into account how they're going to view you. So what is reasonable for you isn't necessarily reasonable for them. In the military, I go back to the military because I have a lot of experience there, and a lot of my stories come from there. I swear like a sailor. I have problems not swearing in places where I shouldn't be swearing in a professional setting. Around children. I have trouble not swearing around children. That's just how I talk now. I didn't talk like that before the Army. I talk like it now. So around other soldiers, there are no issues with that because everyone in the Army talks like that, with very few exceptions. But when you're around, people that live in gated communities and they have money and nannies and everything is nice and everything is fine and everyone is comfortable, they're not going to appreciate that. And so if you don't talk to them in a manner that they expect you to talk to, they are not going to pay attention to it. So one of the things you have to do is not talk how you want to talk necessarily. Put out the information you want to put out, but sometimes you have to take into account who you're talking to and where you're talking about, and sort of figure out what the best approach is to really educate them. If you really want to educate them, sometimes an aggressive approach isn't going to really do the most damage.
Now, yeah, Michelle just asked actually a very very good question.
Sure.
She says she asks, what about cops enforcing immoral laws? Like in Denver, cops were told to take blankets from homeless people.
Yes, that is tricky. Police aren't expected to interpret the laws for morality. That is the government's job. And this is where officer discretion comes in. And this is one of the things you see with riot police. Once the riot police show up, they're not there to be reasonable. They're there to accomplish the goal. Now, if they show up, they get plenty of warnings. They say, here's how you need to leave the area. You have 10 minutes. If you don't, you're risking arrest. There are laws I disagree with. For example, marijuana. Now, being in Washington, marijuana is not a big deal now. I think marijuana is less dangerous than alcohol. The alcohol is freely available to people who are of age. It's a political move. If you look at the history of why marijuana is illegal, it's political. I disagree with it, but on federal property, I still have to enforce that law. Now, I'm not going to screw anyone over any more than we have to, but you knew what the law was. If you know what a law is, if you know there's a law that you believe is in law, the best move isn't to go and break the law to prove a point. It's to get people aware of the fact that law is immoral and take the lawmakers and get changed. Because the police aren't going to care whether or not it's immoral per their job requirements. Now, as a person, they might, and they might be more respectful about it, but they still are being paid to do a job, which is to enforce the laws the government establishes. So if the government has established a law, that is their paycheck. That is how they earn money. And okay, well, obviously there are a lot of counter arguments to that, but unfortunately, that's the system. And so if you want to get a law changed, don't do it through the police. Do it through the government. Because doing it through the police is going to be a hell of a lot messier. Now, you might accomplish the same thing, but it's going to take longer. And there are going to be a lot more people that there are going to be negative consequences.
Yeah, Finbar Martin, he's an auditor supporter. He lives in Dubai, but he's a very law smart, book smart guy. He wants to know if you're familiar with 18 USC 795.
I am probably the most familiar with that than anyone you'll ever talk to.
He says that more auditors should be aware of that. So if you want to I'm not familiar with it. So
okay. So, oh man, you're about to get a rant.
yeah, go for it, man. Floor is yours.
Research this. 18 USC 795 is a law that was established in 1948. It has the history back to 1938 in Congress, where there was an act that was a precursor to a 1940 executive order from Franklin Delano Roosevelt, president, which then became 18 USC 795 in 1948. After which, in 1950, there was an Executive Order 10104 for President Truman. Now, that doesn't really tell you anything. That just established the history of it and how far back it goes. This isn't a new law. But what it essentially is that in the interest of security, I guess, you cannot, by law, film or take photographs or draw pictures of or make diagrams of a military installation that has been declared potential from the general dissemination of information by the President of the United States. So, how do we know that the President has declared an installation protected? That's where Executive Order 10104 comes in. Basically, it says that a base has been declared restricted, confidential, secret, or top secret by the President, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Army, Secretary of the Navy, or the Secretary of the Air Force. Cannot by law be filmed. And it's important to note that that law makes no distinction between public and private property. And there are other similar laws, like 50 U.S.C. 797, which makes the base security procedures enforceable. That one is specific to on the federal property of military installation. 18 U.S.C. 795 has no distinction between public and private. And so a lot of people say, well, one, that only applies to federal property, which there's nothing to indicate that that's true, considering one, it doesn't say that, and two, there is another very similar law that prohibits photography that does make the distinction between federal and public property.
But they're asking, as it pertains to that, is there an accessible list that people can view?
No, there is not a list. The way that the government, at least people have said there's a list. No one has ever provided the list. Every time someone says they have the list, I get very excited or very nervous. But no one has ever either provided it to me because they could, or they were just unwilling to do it. Like, oh yeah, you can search it. I've searched very, very hard for this list. I don't believe it exists because the government has sort of decided a more blanket approach. So, president can declare it restricted. The president has declared that all these secretaries can declare it restricted. And if you want to know what the Secretary of the Army declares as restricted, you want to look at Army Regulation 190-13, which is for official use only, so I can't quote it, which is really difficult because that's really great information. I cannot share it with you. However, if you Google Army Regulation 190-13, you will find it very easily. I can't give you a link. I can't give you information. By law, that would be illegal for me to do. I'm not supposed to agreement. However, Army Regulation 190-16 is very similar, just a little bit watered down. It's not as much relevant information, but it is available to the public, so I can't quote that one for you.
Well, wait, now, I don't know if this has to do with it or not. I don't know if it's relative or not. But Slacker was talking about filming an airport, an Air Force base.
Genovese versus town of Southampton?
I don't know. He's
Okay.
talking about how he's saying that he's filmed the runway from one side with no problem, but the
Sure.
other side is posted no filming.
I can give you information on that. Let me finish with AR 190-16, and then I'll get into that. So that regulation, that Army regulation, yes, it applies to the Army. What it basically does is establishes how the Secretary of the Army defines various things. To include, it has a definition of what a restricted area is. Basically, it's an area that requires additional security procedures to prohibit unauthorized access. So any installation with an access control point where you give them your government ID, technically by definition, is a restricted military installation and is protected by 18 U.S.C. 795. It's just some bases don't actually enforce it because they're like, camera phones are everywhere, so on and so forth. It is enforceable, but generally, the bases I've worked on is you can't film the airfields, you can't film the access control points, you can't film the skips, you can't film the special forces compounds, you can't film the arms rooms. There are a few other places. Everywhere else you can film. They don't care about any other part of the fence line except for the entrance, exit points, and a few other things. The problem with people are like, well, why don't they just cover it up? Well, the access control points cannot be covered up. You got vehicles coming in and out. It wouldn't work. And anything that would work would be so prohibitively expensive that the government wouldn't do it. So they rely on this law. Now, there are a lot of people that do film these installations, and nothing really happens. The police report check up on them. It isn't a law that's enforced a lot. However, if the police really wanted to enforce it, they absolutely could. Now, as far as the having a National Guard base that's attached to an airport, where part of it can be filmed, part of it cannot. There's a very interesting case, Genovese versus the town of Southampton, where this woman named Genovese was filming parts of the National Guard part of the air base. This was in New York, actually, in the I want to say this southern, I don't know, it was in New York. She was filming. An officer saw it, thought it was suspicious, knew about 18 U.S.C. 795. Watched her drive into the airport, which is technically still federal crime. Arrested her, stopped her on suspicion of filming, arrested her for trespassing with the intent to commit a crime under 18 U.S.C. 13. I can look it up. It's not terribly relevant. He also found a shotgun shell or something. It was all very suspicious to him, so he made his arrest.
He says wait, hold on. He says it's Lackland Air Force Base. He's filming airmen in training as well as foreign powers like Israel also train there. So wondering if that would make it restricted.
If they wanted to enforce 18 U.S.C. 795, it's fairly likely that they could. If there are questions about that, most installations will have a public affairs office. And per Army Regulation 360-1, which is, it just sort of defines what their job is, it does say that they are expected to know whether or not the installation is protected by 18 U.S.C. 795. So That is the point of contact. That number will be readily available, freely available to the installation. They will have the best information on the individual base and what they that sort of thing.
Yeah, hey, brothers. Hey, sorry, Ozark Hillbilly wanted to ask you some questions.
Sure.
So let me turn the volume up here.
Hey, how you doing?
What's up, brother?
I do watch a lot of Blue Bacon streams. I do. To me, it's informative to be able to watch other opinions. I like that part. Now, on Air Force bases, I live fairly close to Whiteman, which is where the stealth is located. In the middle of Missouri. I don't know. I've never checked to go on Google, can you see it from the air, from the satellites? I don't know.
Google question.
Did they take that down?
I can tell you all sorts of things about Google. So Google, obviously, you can see military installations. You cannot see every military installation. Top secret ones, I assume top secret ones, are missing. And if you look at the ones in combat zones, generally they don't show up nearly to the extent that they should. Area 51 went undocumented. There was a picture taken. It wasn't updated for 8 years. Now, Google takes between 1 month and 3 years to update the entire globe. So for them to accidentally not film that location for 8 years is mathematically incredibly unlikely. And we know that the government is involved because there was a paper written by Michelle Brungraber, who is an ex-CIA. I'll have to pull it up, actually. I can tell you exactly who she was. This is a question a lot of people ask. Michelle Brungraber wrote in a paper for the National War College. So it's a paper for the National War College. She's a former CIA senior executive intelligence officer, and she actually has a LinkedIn profile. If you want to check it, confirm that she actually knows what she's talking about. It's incredible. Her resume is bonkers. So she wrote a paper saying,
speak a little closer to the phone. I'm having trouble hearing you.
So he's old.
A former CIA senior executive intelligence officer, and she wrote an article that basically said when commercial aerial photography from satellites was starting to become a big thing, the government actually had a lot of concerns about it, and they decided that it wasn't the best interest to allow an American company to dominate that industry. Control an American company a lot better than you control, say, a Russian or Chinese company. So Google has a lot of allowances that they are given, but it is given. They are given by the government, and the government is able to step in and say, "No, don't publish that one," or "Hey, that one, yeah, no, we reviewed it. We don't like it. Edit this part out." The government actually absolutely does that. It's just that, for the most part, the image you see isn't really going to be that much of a security concern. The thing that you want to protect is the documents, which you're not going to see, regardless. The security procedures, that's part of the problems when you're filming the access control point. If you're documenting those security procedures, you're saying how many cars are going, how many are being searched randomly, how do the police respond to this, how do the security forces or the military police respond to that, where are the vehicles parked each day, how do they herringbone out from a situation, that sort of thing. Those are things that will not show up in Google Maps. Those are things that will not show up on someone driving by with a dash cam. But if you sit at an access control point, or you sit at an airfield with equipment that's classified as restricted, confidential, secret, top secret, these are things you will see. And if someone had nefarious purposes for documenting that, they can absolutely use that against the United States, which is why the United States has a law that allows prosecution of people who are doing that sort of thing. Now, 18 U.S.C. 795 doesn't just protect the installation. It protects the equipment on the installation from the general dissemination of information. So if you went and you filmed these stealth bombs, because I believe those are still have some level of classification that protects them from the general knowledge of their schematics and that sort of thing. You went out and filmed them, the police could prosecute. Are they likely to? No, because it takes them a while to get to you, and just taking a quick picture and going, they're not going to get to you in time. But if you sit there and you film how they land, how they take off, how the whoever does whatever. I don't know much about cell phones. If that's what you're looking at, yes, they can absolutely ask questions.
I understand what you're saying. Well, we just had, when Iran took down a drone, I live in Lake of the Ozarks, and they fly down, A-10s fly down here all the time. And I probably had 24 different ones because I started looking at markings on the planes. We had several stealth that were flying the lake, and I mean low. It was low. They were practicing to go to war. And it's pretty awesome. I'm going to get off the airplane for a quick second because my very first question I had for you, I'm also like Ryan. I do believe there are good cops. And ranks have it to where a lot of the good cops can't intervene in a bad cop that might be a little bit higher rank and say, wait a second, you know, that is bad. Have you ever, and I know you're not a cop anymore, which I applaud you for that. I do like your streams, though. I do. I also like Think Like a Cop. He's also an ex-policeman. And he watches a lot of videos and explains where both sides went wrong. Now, I got a question for you.
Sure.
Have you ever made an arrest that you felt so bad about after the arrest and lost sleep over?
There are times, yes, and mostly it's domestic violence situations. Military, I don't know if it has more domestic violence than most people, but it happens. You know, soldiers come back from a combat zone and they don't transition as successfully as we would like them. It leads to issues with marriage, leads to fighting, leads to violence. So occasionally you will have a soldier or even a spouse. The spouses are, they get their hands dirty often enough where they start going on each other. And I mean, this is a family. I mean, if they have kids, like I've arrested parents because they broke the law because they were punching each other in the face. And they got their 3-year-old kid. How do you explain to a 3-year-old kid that your parents have to go in jail and your aunt has to pick you up because or a CPS worker, right? I had to get CPS work involved because there was no one to take care of the child, and that's never fun. And so when you see a police officer doing their job, it's not just, I'm going to pull this person over for some bullshit, right? Oh, their license plate lights. I used to pull people over for that all the time. I've never charged someone, but I'm not looking for license. I'm looking for drugs or alcohol, right? It's not just the bullshit. It's you have to deal with the mental stress of that. I have a very good friend who had to pull a burning body out of the guy lived. He's in jail now because he killed his buddy. His friend fused, melted to the dashboard. And that's what they had to deal with that day, was alerting the family and dealing with the fact that they had to get a man unfused from a burnt car. They had to deal with a man with 70% burns all over his body. I've been to suicides. I've been to attempted suicide. It gets difficult. It gets mentally difficult. And yes, there are things I regret, not because I was wrong, but it was upsetting that people ended up in the situation they were. And of course, it's upsetting when the system fails them and they should have been getting help for something. Especially, in the military, you have so many options for help, but people want to not pursue that. They want to be the big tough guy. I went to combat. I shot terrorists. I was blown up twice. I can deal with a little bit of relaxation at home, but not all of them can. Many of them, it doesn't work that way. And I regret having to get involved. I regret that I got, but there's nothing I went like, ooh, I shouldn't have arrested that guy.
Do you think that, I'm sorry, somehow, Brian, his audio keeps cutting out on me.
That was because my phone tipped over. So,
Oh, okay.
sorry, man. I'm trying to get it steady over the speaker.
Hey, I want to applaud you for what you've done in your life. I do, and I want to applaud you for answering the question that this is a tough one to answer, but you were honest. I applaud you for that.
Sure.
May God have have your heart. Yeah, thank you, sir. Brian, I'm gonna hang up and keep it going. I gotta put my headphones on back on so I can hear. But at least I'm home. We'll talk at you.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you later, man.
Alrighty.
Yep. Bye.
I have a couple things I see in the chat that I want to talk about, especially 18 USC 795 still.
Well, yeah, I know. I understand the thing is that's a really heavy topic that I know you can go on and on for hours over, and I don't want to dedicate the whole stream to one topic. Somebody in here mentioned something about female cops that had turned in some other cops, and as a result, they received death threats from all over the country. Well, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I'm sure I can imagine what your thoughts are, but
I get death threats. I get people saying that they hope that someone goes and shoots me on my way to the mailbox. You get used to it as a police officer.
you get used to it as a streamer.
Yeah, you get used as someone on the internet. That's 100%. I think if they turn in someone for doing something wrong, good for them. I think that's great. But you got to understand that on both sides, there are extremists. So you got people who will support the police no matter what, and you got people who will never support the police, doesn't matter what happens. And so the incredibly pro-police people, I mean, if they dislike the fact that cops are training other cops, then they said their piece, and I don't agree with it. But
Well, that's why I say a big point I've been trying to make is, a lot of people say bad cops are bad cops, and good cops are also bad cops for not turning in the bad cops. Now, I say, okay, yes, I agree with that, but how do you know they haven't turned them in? It's not like they're going to wave a flag and say, I'm a whistleblower. Because obviously, if a cop comes right out and says, "Yeah, I turned in, Detective so and so for selling drugs," they're putting their life in jeopardy. They're not going to do that.
Yeah, no, I've turned in a cop. I've turned in one cop. Everything else I can handle at a lower level. We talked, and I said, "You better change yourself." This one, he was my supervisor. He was my direct supervisor, and he said a lot of things I thought were inappropriate. He did a lot of things I thought were inappropriate. I brought it to the attention of his supervisor. I don't know what happened. I have no idea if he was punished. He was already leaving. He was being transferred. He wasn't being transferred for a bad thing. It was just, you only stay in one location for so long. His time there was up. And as his time got closer and closer to him moving, he started to act out. Like, I'm basically untouchable now. What are they going to do? I'm leaving. And so he did a thing called quid pro quo, where you try to trade favors for sexual acts with someone who's in charge of. That is something the military does not stand for. So I report him. I report him to a lot of people through the correct channels, and I have no idea what happened. It's entirely possible he wasn't. So even if you do report it, if there's someone in that chain of reporting that doesn't forward it along, and I try to make sure that didn't happen by reporting to as many people as I could that were part of the correct group of people I was to report it to. They're not going to tell me what happened. They're not going to tell me what. Or if anything happened. But you also have to consider in some of these places, the higher up you get as a police officer, you become a sergeant, you become a lieutenant, you become a captain. Very, very political. You answer to the governor. You answer to the mayor, and that sort of thing. So you see places where police are enforcing are doing traffic ticket quotas, which aren't legal, but the mayor's like, you're going to do this, or you're out of a job. And if that's how you're supporting your wife and your 3 kids, you need that job. And if you have a mayor that's going to make getting rehired in a different jurisdiction impossible. You're going to do what you can to keep it and to sort of try to fix the situation without, screwing over 4 other people that you care for and are living with, I guess. So it's more than just black and white. People look at it like it's black and white. Unfortunately, there are so many factors that can be involved in reporting something. Sometimes people don't report it because, like, that's my friend, I don't care, right? But sometimes they go, if I report this, I'll never work, in this location again. They'll put me on night shift. They'll put me, on all holidays. I'll never see my family again. Is it worth it to turn in this bad cop, or should I just have a conversation with him and hope it gets better? So you don't see that behind the scenes, though. That's not something a lot of people consider.
Let's see. Somebody had said, "What are your thoughts on?" Again, bringing up Eric Brent, but standing outside of a courthouse, handing out flyers that outline jury nullification.
Jury nullification in what sense? Like,
That was their question. I'm just reiterating here. They literally said handing out flyers on jury notification. I'm guessing jury notification in general.
So I knew a guy. That's actually happened to me. I just had to check what it was. He used that terminology. He was caught with marijuana, an unlawful amount. No, was it him or was it his friend? It was his friend. It was a friend of a friend. The friend is actually a sovereign citizen, who I hope to interview at some point when we'll be doing a topic on that. He has some interesting views that I don't agree with, but anyway, doesn't matter. He had a friend who was caught with marijuana, and he went to court, and the jury basically said, "We don't think marijuana should be illegal, therefore we're not going to charge him, even though he meets all the elements, and the prosecution can prove that he met all the elements of possession of a controlled substance." Even though they said yes, he committed the crime, they said we're not going to include the charge. We're going to say, if you're going to charge him, then he's not guilty. If you aren't going to charge him, we don't care, right? Like, he's free. He's a free man. We don't think this should be a crime. That's basically jury nullification, if I'm correct. So you're on a sidewalk. So there's a difference between public and non-public forums. Someone actually brought it up in the chat. I'm really excited to see that. Too many people do not know the two. A public forum is a place designated for your freedom of expression. You do a lot more on a public forum than a non-public forum. So a public forum would be like a sidewalk, a park, somewhere where you see people protest and you're not getting arrested for it. Protesting in that courtroom is a non-public forum. The public can access it, but for a very specific purpose. So handing out a flyer, you can't force someone to take a flyer. You can legally hand it out, and you're just educating the public. And if that jury is swayed by that pamphlet, then it probably wouldn't have taken much to sway them anyway. So I don't think that's wrong. I think that it is important for people to express their thoughts. That is, something that's protected by the Constitution. For the most part, obviously there are exceptions to the thoughts you can express. For example, I would not be allowed by law to, go in the public park. And, well, I'm not going to go down that route. I'm not. I don't want someone to edit this and make me say something that I shouldn't be. There are limits to what you can express, but they are very few and far between.
Yeah, well, that's
do that, great.
That's what he mentioned it a while back. Finbar Martin had said, that USC code you were talking about. The fact that some people or some authorities treat it as if it trumps your First Amendment right.
I'm sorry. Treat what like it trumps the First Amendment right? Oh, the filming the military installation.
Yeah. If your First Amendment right says that you can stand on a sidewalk across the street from the base, you're outside their actual physical perimeter. Sorry. Why is it they're still allowed to come at you and arrest you or whatever?
So the military police cannot come out of the federal jurisdiction of the federal property of the installation. They are bound by what is basically called the Posse Comitatus Act, which means that Active duty soldiers cannot enforce the law against civilians off the federal property of installation. I think it's 2 years in prison maximum if they violate it. So what you'll see is Department of Defense police, which are not active duty soldiers, but they are employed by the military. And they are sometimes given what is called concurrent jurisdiction. It means that they can enforce the law on the federal property and slightly off the federal property. So if it's close enough for them to see, they can basically go and talk to you. Now, the military police can exit the property to talk to you. They cannot enforce the law. They can't detain you any more than a civilian could at that point. Once they leave the federal property, they're basically just a civilian talking to you. So I see a lot of people like, oh, well, this soldier is, AWOL, or he's, committing treason by leaving his property to talk to folks. No, they can have a conversation all day. I've gone off the property to talk to people. And that's totally fine. I cannot do anything a civilian couldn't. But generally, the local police will get called. And so if they have a patrol available near that area, then they'll go, assist. However, they usually don't have a patrol available in that location that is available to devote time to that sort of thing. So the patrol will show up and say, hey, they're not doing anything wrong. You really want me to arrest them? They basically just say, hey, just pop by every once in a while and make sure that they're not doing anything dumb. Just because they can prosecute doesn't mean they always will prosecute. And that's another important thing people don't realize. But regarding your right to film in public, the First Amendment doesn't actually establish that. It says you have the, freedom of press. Now, freedom of press, you have to go into case law. You have to find a case law that says, the press includes filming. There is case law that says that. You have to find case law that establishes who is a member of the press. And you'll have to look at Hurley versus Irish American gay lesbians bisexual group of Boston, I think is the case for that. So not everyone gets the freedom of press. You have to have a message to deliver and an audience to receive it. So even if you have that, if you fail to articulate that to a police officer, he wouldn't be in trouble for arresting for doing an activity because he has no reason to believe that you are going to distribute that information to an audience. So, for example, I have one. It was Accountability America. He was filming outside Joint Base Meyer Henderson Hall. The police said, "Why are you filming?" He says, "You don't need to know that." Well, they do. Otherwise, they can detain him because he doesn't have that First Amendment protection if he doesn't establish that he is a member of the press. Right? You have to be a member of the press to actually be able to film in public. And so, you look at Glick versus Kniff, and you have to keep in mind that that's a circuit court, not a Supreme Court ruling. So it only applies to a few states in the West, California, Washington, Oregon, and a couple others. Nevada? No, not Nevada. Maybe Nevada. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Every ruling that the court says you can film in public, one is a federal circuit, and only about half the country has rulings on them. And two, every single one of those rulings say that your right to film is still subject to restrictions. If you want to know how it can be restricted, you can look at it was Hurley versus Irish American gay lesbian bisexual group Boston. The one about restricting your First Amendment rights and how it can be done lawfully is Ward versus Rock against racism, in which there's a three-pronged test established to determine whether or not restrictions was appropriate.
Okay, now wait. James Ben Barnes brings up a very good point. He says, bullshit, you have no obligation to talk to a cop. You have no obligation to tell them anything. Florida v. Bostick and Terry v. Ohio.
You don't have to tell them anything. But if I come up to you and two people are like, hey, that man stole from this convenience store. I go, okay, I got two witnesses. You guys willing to testify in court? Cool, great. Hey, you're under arrest. And you refuse to say, no, sir, I was actually in the other store. Their security cameras will show you. And you just remain silent, you're getting arrested. Now, the charges might not stick because, of course, you should form a defense. But if you are unable to articulate to me why something may or may not exist that would protect you, then the police officer can act because they don't have that information. So, the police officers, if you're taking pictures for personal use, you're not protected by the freedom of press. And there are various, the Supreme Court hasn't said that, but there are various other courts that have. If anyone reaches out to me, I can provide you with some of those. But by failing to talk to the police officers, he put himself in a situation.
Yeah, see, but we've had this discussion with Law and
Mm,
Smoke before,
mm,
where he talked about mere suspicion, and
mm.
mere suspicion is not a legally recognized thing. Suspicious activity is not probable cause.
Probable cause gets an arrest. Reasonable suspicion is enough for detention, but it has to be for a reasonable amount of time. And people will say only for 20 minutes. That's not true. There's no ruling that says only 20 minutes. There are rulings that indicate 20 minutes is a reasonable amount of time in some situations, but there are other rulings that indicate that, depending on the situation, it has to match what would be reasonable. So suspicion is enough for a police officer to go and talk to you and stop you and keep you from leaving that area while they ask you questions and phone calls, what they need to do. But if they waste your time, if they basically used every avenue of determining whether or not you are committing a crime and they can't figure it out, then they can't establish probable cause, and at that point, we can't really keep you. So reasonable suspicion is basically, it's a very, it can go either way. It's not a hard set definition for that because there are so many different situations that could apply that it would just be impossible to put a hard limit to. So it really comes down to what does a court, what does a jury, once all of the evidence is presented.
Yeah, see, I agree with like what Tay Lin says, and many others have said it. Is the best thing to do is shut up. I mean, I personally think the overall, no matter what, if you know for a fact you are legal, just shut up.
Yep.
Don't say nothing. Don't incriminate yourself. Don't try to incriminate anyone else.
Sure.
Don't
I can
babble.
agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. There are many cases where there's this great video of these two lawyers, Shut the Fuck Up Friday. I don't know if any of you have ever seen that. Absolutely incredible. Because it's true. There are times you just shouldn't talk to the police. But there are times where there is information they need to have. And that's going to be a case by case basis that you need to look at and think, if I don't tell them this, will I get arrested? Right? If I don't provide an alibi, will I get in trouble? So if I press charges against you and you have an alibi that you do not present to me, it doesn't matter if you have an alibi at that point. You can't prove that you weren't at this location committing this crime. But by failing to tell me, no, I have 3 people that I can call right now that can confirm where I was. I have a ticket stub in my wallet that shows I was at a concert with them at the time of this incident. Then the police aren't going to know that, and they can act according to the information that they have. Most of the time, I would recommend do not talk to the police. However, if the police suspect you, you're not going to know all the things that they suspect, because if they're getting a phone call, so all right, I gotta back up. Someone calls 911 and says to the dispatcher, "I see a suspicious person rummaging through my trash." 911 is going to tell the police there's something going on. They're going to play the telephone game. So there's going to be information that's lost in the communication. Some stuff's going to get left out that might be important. Some stuff's going to be added in that isn't important. Police going to show up, and they're going to do what they need to do based on what. You don't know what that knowledge is. They don't have to tell you what that knowledge is. You're expected to comply while they do their investigation. If you fail to articulate why they should not suspect you of that crime, it can end badly for you. Now, it can end badly in the sense that you might be detained or arrested. It generally doesn't mean that you will get charged. There's a big difference between detained, arrested, and successfully prosecuted. Right? There are different levels of this.
Right, but that's an extremely horrible. How do you put it? It's wrong. I mean, we should not have to be arrested or detained or whatever in the first place. If they don't have any proof that I did anything wrong, then they should have absolutely no right to take me away from where I am. And even if they don't charge me, the fact is they're still interfering with my time. They're
Right.
taking me
I mean,
away.
and the longer you resist their invest, or you fail to, I get what you're saying. I absolutely understand what you're saying. The police have to go and they have to do the job and they have to respond to crime. And in most cases, they're responding to actual crime. but not every citizen knows what crime is, and they'll look at things and assume, and oh my God, military neighbors don't talk to each other. So we get called to all sorts of stuff that can be resolved by a simple conversation between two people, and it's ridiculous. But the problem is, if we get called something, we have to go to that. And if someone calls us saying this crime is being committed, we go with the suspicion that that crime is being committed. And the police have the authority to stop someone from leaving a scene that might be part of something bigger. And it's really easy to say, well, I'm not committing a crime. Why do they have to stop me? But you have to look at it as you're part of a small percentage of people that are getting stopped that aren't committing a crime. What if there are people that are committing a crime and then the police aren't allowed to stop them? You know, it's yes, it sucks for this tiny group, but it's very effective for this much bigger group. And there isn't a system in place at the moment that is more effective than what we have now. Now, that doesn't mean we shouldn't look for a better system. That absolutely does not mean we shouldn't look for a better system. But at the moment, that is the one that is in place, and that is the one that's determined to be the most.
Well, yes, what I'm talking about when I say shut up, what I mean by that is if you don't know what you're talking about, or if you don't know what to say, it's best. Wow, thank you, Greta. Appreciate that. It's best just to stay silent.
Mm.
Don't But I also advocate towards education. I
Mm-hmm.
want people to learn what their rights are and what their rights aren't. Like we were talking about earlier about civilians coming into the mix. Now, in the past, we've had people like Monkey who got jumped by people because they did not like what he was saying. Um, yeah, somebody post Blue Bacon's channel link, please. It's on my community page too. So,
Agreed.
but yeah, I agree. I want people. I want this to actually matter. I want this to be more than just
Mm-hmm.
us standing on sidewalks with cameras. I want
Yep.
people to learn why we do that.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it there are auditors to begin with? Why do we feel auditing is beneficial?
Yes.
You
Now,
know, I want that knowledge spread. But in the
mm-hmm.
case of people who are like, you get an aggressive cop that comes up to you, what are you doing? Why are you here? Whatever, that type of cop is obviously not going to listen to,
No,
I'm
no.
filming.
And that's why we have to advocate. I think part of my problem with some of the auditors, not most of the auditors, most of the auditors are great. Some of them go out just to be aggressive. And so now police are writing these memorandums to other departments saying we have this issue, be aware that it might spread to you. And so of course in those memos that are going out to different departments about this auditing movement, they're talking about the very aggressive people that are doing the wrong thing, that are making a lot of, that are just trying to antagonize situations. And so when other police officers deal with them, they're not going to deal with them well. So you have a couple, the same with police, you have some people hate this. People hate this phrase, the bad apples ruin the bunch. Because people just throw that in there, like, yeah, there's the bad police officers. No, yeah, there are some bad police officers. Maybe they're great. Doesn't mean we shouldn't remove the bad apples. But in the auditing community, it's the same. And they're sort of ruining police perception of the auditing. And so when the police are dealing with auditors, they sometimes are more efficient than they should be. So what needs to happen is people need to do these activities, like Furry Potato. I like Furry Potato. I think Furry Potato is a great audit. Remains calm, does her thing, still gets arrested, but the thing is, she gets arrested, and you know she was arrested for a specific reason. When you get really antagonistic and really aggressive towards the police, there are 100 different reasons to be arrested. If you stay calm, thanks, Greta. Um, if you stay calm, it's much easier to determine where things went wrong and who was at fault. And too many people just want to go out there and like, I hate police. I'm going to film me, hating them, and people will love it, and people do love it. But part of the problem is the way the police interact with the auditing community. Is the auditing community, some of them, not most of them, some of them do need to calm down just a little bit and stop doing it just to antagonize and try to get those lawsuits and get the money from them. And then many police officers need some interpersonal fucking communication skills from. So there are too many officers out there who don't know how to talk to people, and they go to a thing and they take charge. When they take charge, it means their way is the law. They're not. Their way isn't the law. They're enforcing the law. They have certain things they are allowed to do to enforce that. But they're both sides. Both sides absolutely need to calm down a little bit on the bad ends.
Right. Well, now wait. Slacker says, didn't he just say earlier we shouldn't do that to cops? Lump them together. When we say there are no good cops, but they do it to us, he just admitted.
No. I'm saying both sides have those bad people that are ruining it for everyone else. I'm not lumping everyone. I'm lumping the way I'm lumping the auditors. Right now I'm saying most of them are good. I'm saying many police officers. However, the bad ones make it worse for the auditors, and the bad auditors make it worse for the police. And it needs to. You were saying it's in many communities, us versus them. It's not us versus them. You should be working together to solve the problem. You shouldn't be trying to be like, my side is right. No, the end goal should be, we have an issue, let us resolve it. And fighting each other, one side's going to win, but it's going to be the one with more, the bigger side. And right now, the bigger side is the police. If you really want to solve this problem, I personally,
You got a fellow MP in there.
no, I just saw Greta. He's 10 years military cop. I'm so sorry. I'm just kidding. It has its moments, though. No, I think part of the problem is it's becoming too much. We need to fuck the police. It needs to stop being about it. And I say this about Antifa. I say this about there's another movement that I've been looking into. I can't remember the name, but going against attacking the police isn't going to solve the issue. It's just going to aggravate. Sit down with the police, discuss your issues, file the paperwork, talk to lawmakers, talk to politicians. Do what you're doing, but you gotta do it right. You gotta do it in a manner that's actually going to be effective and actually going to make a difference.
Right.
And if you go out and you just again hate the state, he went out just because he didn't like police, and you can see it in his videos. He goes out specifically to make their job difficult, and he paid the price for it. And there are so many people on the video I did on him that are just like, oh yeah, fuck the auditing community. No, it's not about that. It's fuck this one specific dude who's ruining it for everybody else. Right? Because now those police officers in that area are not going to be very receptive to the idea that the First Amendment auditors are trying to promote an idea. They're not going to be receptive to that.
No,
So
I agree with that. I agree with that. And like Taylin has said very colorfully in the channel, some of these people, we've been saying it for years now. Some of us have been around for a little while, and there's a difference between YouTubers and activists.
Yes.
You got your YouTubers, which I'm not going to point fingers, and I damn sure could, that only care, they do it specifically for the money, and there are some that make a boatload of money, like an insane amount of money. And then there's others like, me and Taylin and all them. It took me forever to get monetized, and I don't know if you're familiar with the monetization process, but once you're monetized, you have to have a bare minimum of $100 waiting after YouTube takes their cut before you get your money. Now, YouTube keeps 30% of super chats and 40% of ad revenue. Wow. So, like right now, I've got the one super chat there. Now that's going to sit there until I have more that equate up to $100 to, to even get the money. So, my point is, we're not getting rich off of this. Now, what Greta did was awesome. Eventually, I will get it, and that's awesome. But the point is, we're not getting rich off of this. My channel grows so slowly compared to others because I can't be out there in the street having encounters, and so I have to. Oh, jeez, I have to do it the slow way. I do video edits, I do interviews, I do live streams, I do tribute videos. I do a ton of stuff. I also help new channels. So does Tay, so does Boomer, so does Michigan Mister. I can't even tell you how many channels Tay Lynn I've seen her help in the last little over 2 years. You know, Look at her channel. She doesn't have 20,000 people,
Right.
but she's still here every day. She's still here supporting the cause.
Yeah.
So,
I
you
I
know,
just
there's
had a conversation with someone in my comment section about that sort of thing, the money. Some auditors found out that instead of being activists by being assholes and just being just aggravating the police, they get a lot more views. So a lot of the anti-government, the anti-police people jump in, as opposed to people who were actually involved in the movement. And so they got a lot more views. And so they went, well, this is a great model to monetize. I deserve some money. I'm putting a lot of time into it. So yeah, well, why shouldn't I just get a few viewers? And they're the police. They're expected to deal with that sort of thing. And so they sort of started to do things that would get more viewers. And then other channels said, wow, they're getting a lot of views. Or other people that didn't have channels said, they're getting a lot of views. I'm going to start a channel specifically starting at that aggravated sort of model and go out and harass police. And I believe that those are the ones that are the issues. The ones who weren't activists. They saw that money can be made, and they jumped on board and said, I'm going to do this for the money. And that's the issue that I'm seeing, is the
yeah.
ones that are specifically in it for the money.
Well, that's why I sent you the initial comment. Is I see, the Degeneration Nation and the
I hate
Van
degenerate.
Valian.
I hate degenerate.
These guys, I've tried to get them on here 100
mm,
times. I'm like, come talk to us. Explain why, tell us why you hate us so much.
mm,
Why do you make these videos? Why do you lump us in with those fools? And they will not do it. Van Valiant
mm,
is outright responded to me saying he won't. Degeneration Nation won't even acknowledge I exist.
mm,
But, that's why when I saw your channel, I'm like, oh, great, here comes another one.
yeah,
You know,
mm,
and these guys are making a ton of money off of doing nothing more than taking clips of our videos and bashing us.
yeah.
So, that's frustrating.
No, I completely get it. I watched the Degeneration Nation videos for the content. I can't stand the edits that he puts in and how he puts his own opinion in there. Um, I don't want that. I want it unbiased. I just want to see what happened from start to finish. I don't need someone else's opinion. I have my own. That's what gets me about that. The idea, they're putting people in the wrong groups. There's a difference between, obviously, sovereign citizens and First Amendment auditors. There's a difference between the sovereign citizens. You got human on the land. That's British, and they base it off of British rule. Sovereign citizens basically started as a white supremacy in the 1940s. Um, Moorish Americans believe that the United States is Morocco. Each one of them is a separate thing. But no, they just throw it all together.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of them videos, man, they freaking kill me. I've watched so many Sovereign Citizen videos just for the laugh.
So they're fun. They're
You
fun.
know,
I never encountered a sovereign citizen on duty, and I'm still upset about that.
oh man,
I was
that'd have to be a blast, man. Like the one, there's that epic one that's gotten millions of views, and it's the chick screaming Articles
yeah,
of
where's the official bank
Confederacy.
now?
Yeah, they're dragging her out of the car. But those guys, they take our videos and put it right next to that. And it's ridiculous. I mean, it just it doesn't help.
No.
Thanks for posting his channel, guys. By the way, And the opinion I told you before we even started this, I wasn't sure what I thought of you and your
Mm-hmm.
channel. I was honest with you.
Yeah, you were.
And I can appreciate the fact that you are sharing your knowledge and your experience. You know, that is something that the movement does need. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing a stream on Tuesday. I'm gonna have on Rogue Nation, and I'm gonna have Law Smoke back on, the law professor. And
Sure.
we're gonna talk about Poster 7 and post office
Ah.
audits, because so many new auditors, these fly by night wannabe YouTubers, they
Mm-hmm.
think it's a rite of passage to audit a post office, and they completely misinterpret, Poster 7.
I
And
have a script written for that actually about your right to film the post office. I'm going to be filming after a couple other. I've got probably three or four videos from my schedule of what I'm going to be making. But yeah,
oh yeah, well, check out the stream on Tuesday. It should be
yep.
interesting because Rogue Nation did a post office audit, but he showed the right way to do it. He went and got permission from the postmaster.
Right, which is exactly what you need to do.
So yeah, so that's why I said, hey, that'll make a good stream.
Mm-hmm.
But it's things like that. That's why I've said about Merv, and then don't troll. If you want to help out, help out. But don't be an ass. Don't troll. I told you some of your videos seemed a bit trolling to me, a bit,
Mm.
but I understand your point of view as well, and I can appreciate the fact that well, you suck, T Dog, because I'll still be on probation until August. He's gonna be where I live, but
Wait, are you in Rochester?
yeah.
I used to live in Scottsville. I
Oh,
went to
okay.
school
So
in
you were just south of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm originally from Long Island, but I've spent most of my life up here.
Sure.
So but yeah, I mean, I you seem like a good guy, and I think people should go and subscribe to you and give you a
Thank you.
chance, hear you out. We're gonna have differing opinions at times, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes it. That's the spreading of knowledge. I
Yeah.
don't agree with everything Law and Smoke says, but I enjoy talking to him every time.
Sure.
He's a great guy. So yeah, well, yeah, I get what you're saying, Tay, but I've been there, and I've had to take the plea deal because I didn't have a choice. My mother was very sick, and she had nobody to take care of her. So my options were a year in jail. It was time served plus a year, and or 3 years probation. And my mom had no one to take care of her, so I took the plea. But I do get what Tay's saying about following it through as well. I don't know if you're familiar with Betusai. He's Texas auditor. He's old school. He's been around a long time. Um,
Hmm. I don't
he's
think so.
he got the law made down there in the Fifth Circuit. Oh my God, what is the freaking law now? Oh my God, it just fell out of my head. I can't believe this. What is, guys? What is the one? What did he just get? What law was it he got? Case law. He won. Turner versus Driver.
Oh, yeah. Wait.
Betusai is Turner.
I do remember seeing this. I read this one.
Yeah, Betusai
Hmm.
is Turner.
Okay.
So check out his channel. He's a good guy too. He's been around a long time. Really good auditor. He doesn't really audit much anymore, but he still streams and he still takes part in the movement. If you're watching a lot of our videos, you'll see a lot of shit happen down in Leon Valley, And
Yep, I'm familiar with the auditors there. There's a
yeah,
couple of them.
he was down there, and he went, and he kind of put himself in the middle of it in a way, but in a good way. He went down there to test to see if the very law they named after him was being acknowledged.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really interesting. So check out his channel.
Was that
And
where Mexican Video was
yeah,
based out of Boone Valley? Yeah,
not based at it, but that's where he got arrested. 3,000
that's it. Yeah,
times. So I mean, like Padilla's like trespassed from the entire city.
yeah.
So
I've heard that. It's impressive. You really have to work hard for that.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, 5 years ago, Turner versus Driver. Yeah, it did. It took away their qualified immunity, and I think that should be countrywide, not
Yeah.
just Fifth Circuit. That's something that should be countrywide.
Mm-hmm. Well, especially with the memos that were put out, the Department of Homeland Security memos. Um, those are
Exactly,
important.
Slacker. I agree, but when I say they're doing it wrong, I'm talking about like what Tay was talking about. The fools that are going out and breaking the law,
Mm.
they aren't doing this for the activism. Those are
Yeah.
the ones I'm talking about that are doing it wrong. I support you, man, and you probably curse more than anybody else I've ever seen. So, but Slacker, I definitely support you entirely. So, but I just meant right and doing it right versus doing it wrong in the sense of the YouTubers and the law, those guys versus people like you. You'll see Slacker's videos, man. Watch him. I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah.
He's a he go he doesn't take shit from no one. So Slacker was one of the first auditors I ever watched. I came across his videos by accident, and man, I'm telling you, you're in for a treat. You may not
Fantastic.
agree with him. You may not agree with him. You may not agree with his style. But you know what? He always stands up for his rights. Always.
Yeah.
And he'll stand
That's
up for
good.
your rights too.
Good.
So, you know, yeah, yeah, Colorado Donkey Watch, yes, Taylin. I meant to mention him earlier. He's
I
obviously out of Colorado. Um, you gotta watch the video from Colorado Donkey Watch's channel. He went. They were outside of jail. Him and a friend of his, and it was a couple months ago, so it was really cold. It's Colorado. It's freaking cold. Okay, it was
yeah.
like below freezing, and they were wearing, them like half face masks to keep your
Right.
face warm. These freaking cops came out and surrounded him.
Hmm.
They like ARs, and they came out and they're like, "Can we help you?" And they said no, and they're "Have a good day." Okay, so now it's a non-consensual contact. They said,
Sure.
"Okay, thank you. Let's move on." They were trying to leave. They were on public property on a public sidewalk. These cops came, pinned them down, put their knees on them, went through their pockets. Donkey was saying, "You can't do that. That's violating my Fourth Amendment right." And I don't care. And he went through and got his ID out of his pocket. It was bad, man. You got to watch it.
But I definitely will.
Um,
That sounds like the kind of thing where people called it in and said there's an active shooter they're wearing ski masks. That isn't uncommon. I mean, not to excuse the police behavior, but this is why you can get criminally charged for filing a false police report. Is because if you do that, like swatting, for example, swatting can get you prison time, or it can.
yeah.
If you come and say, this is the thing, I totally saw them with a gun, they stashed it, now they're just wandering around. Um, that's why sometimes you really do have to be careful. You don't know what the police think is happening.
Well, see,
And
now wait. Let me. I don't mean to interrupt you, but gas.
no, go ahead.
He was not. They were not there to start trouble. Gas. If you watch the whole video, they went
Yeah,
through. They started out by touring the inside of the police department. They had no problems at all. They were,
definitely, if someone can link that, I definitely want to watch that because I don't want to excuse bad police behavior.
yeah, they basically were going to give it a pass, a passing audit, and then all of a sudden these cops came out of nowhere and just like in trucks, coming out out of the building with ARs, hiding behind the truck. It was like ridiculous the amount of manpower they used to take down two guys with cameras.
Yeah, that I definitely have to see. I'm definitely very. This was the Colorado Donkey Watch.
Yes.
I know I've heard their name. I don't know if I've interacted with them directly.
He's got a Discord channel as well, a Discord server channel, whatever you call it. I can't get on the Discord because of my hearing, so
Right.
it doesn't make sense for me to get on there because you get more than one person talking and forget it. But yeah, it's like Tay said. There are civil suits in progress from that. It was bad though. It's a perfect example of auditors that were doing nothing wrong, and that was like the extreme. And if
Yeah,
you,
I think we found it. No, wait. Oh, it's on Black Label.
well, yeah, it's on Black Label's channel too. Black Label helped him get the exposure for it,
Sure.
but
I'm interesting. I'll definitely have to watch that because yeah, no, there's definitely a lot going on here.
yeah, Taylin just linked the Discord if you want to check out his Discord.
Sure, yeah. Still have to make a new Discord. Um, I had my original one that I use. I want to make one that's specifically for this channel, so I don't get confused. Here. Wow. All right. I have a couple questions I saw in the chat I wanted to answer.
Yeah. Then we'll wrap that up because we're coming on to the 2 hour mark. So.
Oh yeah, we are. Look at that. The green. Some people are asking why I covered up my flag with the green sheet. That is my flag. It's a green screen.
Chroma key
in post. Why go for security job? Because that's what I joined the army to do personal security, like bodyguard work, and military police is the closest I could get. I've done a lot of security work for some pretty cool people. Built my resume, ended my contract, and now I'm pursuing it professionally. So that's that. Why is fraternal order protect other officers? Because some of them are good friends, and unfortunately, they can't see past that. Some auditors are the same way. Unfortunately, it doesn't excuse the behavior. People should be able to see past that friendship to do what's right. Should officers investigate other officers? I mean that's why we have internal affairs. Internal affairs aren't police officers. Police officers don't like internal affairs. People think that they're working together. I promise you, they're not. No, we hate internal affairs because, not me personally, but generally police will say no, internal affairs is garbage because internal affairs basically treats you like you're nothing and like you're a criminal. So like some people are treated by the police. So police obviously don't like that taste. Kind of a little ironic. Don't think internal affairs is in league with police. Absolutely not. That's basically it. That's all I got.
He's lying.
And that's
Which
fine.
part? You provided a whole lot of information real fast, so
Yeah,
I don't know which part you lied about.
My bad.
No,
Maybe
you know
no, but
what,
he ended up.
guys, obviously we're not going to all agree with everything. We're not going to see eye to eye on everything. What I can appreciate about you is your willingness to come on here and talk about it. And, just I like the fact that you want to provide as much information as you
Mhm.
can because I'm an information guy.
Yeah.
I wrote software for decades, so I'm a,
Mhm.
information geek. So I can appreciate that. And you guys, I encourage you to check out his channel and make your own decisions. See if you like what he does and see if you want to support him. If you do, subscribe. You
If you
know,
want me back on here and Brian King wants me back on here, you let him know. I'm more than willing to come back.
yeah, we'll have you back on. I just try not to go over the 2 hour mark.
Yeah, that's my bad. I talk
No, it's
forever.
not your fault. I mean, I enjoy it. When you get the information flowing, it's a good
Mhm.
stream. When you sit there scratching your ass trying to figure out what to say, then it gets boring. So,
Sure.
you know, but yeah, so I appreciate you coming on though, and like I said, I appreciate your willingness to talk, and I definitely want to have you back on again. Maybe
Perfect.
we can have you and Law and Smoke on. So between the two of you guys, you could answer, a lot of questions people have regarding law.
Mhm.
So, all right, guys, last chance before I kill the stream. Any questions for him? You want to fire one off real quick? Well, not everybody agrees. Like I said, everybody's entitled to their own opinions. That's fine. So, yeah, if you guys want to follow up on Discord with Taylin and the others on there, go for it. PayPal is on the screen if anybody wants to contribute to the channel. I'm using Steve Pinder's PayPal for now. So, otherwise, I thank everybody for coming. You hang tight, and I'll kill the stream. So, thank everybody in the channel for coming.